Good morning, everybody. Cheers. It's time. Mike's MMA Picks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show, brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. The show must go on. The show must go on. We heard the news about Jacare Souza. 11 fights set to take place in Florida. Fights are on as we speak. A couple of things to pay attention to. The lack of fans in the arena. Fighters being able to hear their coaches. Fighters hearing their own breathing. The potential for fighters to gas out. It's going to be an interesting card from top to bottom. Let's break it down quickly. We'll start with the first fight of the evening. We've got Spann-Alvey taking on Ryan Spann. This fight takes place at 205 pounds. DraftKings prices. We've got Ryan Spann at 9,300. High price to pay for a fighter who hasn't performed much on the big stage, coming off of a few victories here. He's on a 7-fight win streak, taking on Spann-Alvey, who has 46 professional fights under his belt. 33-13 record, 6,900 for Spann-Alvey. Southpaw plus 320 at the betting window. The other side of the fight, you have Ryan Spann sitting at minus 420. Ryan Spann has been knocked out twice in his career. He has 11 submission victories. A couple of things to note here is Spann-Alvey's strong base. I know he's shown some chinks in the armor lately. If Spann isn't able to hurt Alvey early, this could be a long, boring fight. Problem, you look at the output. Spann-Alvey typically takes his time, backs himself against the cage, bites down on his mouthpiece, had a decent chin, has great takedown defense. In this spot, Spann, if he wants to get the job done, he's going to have to use his length. He's got a significant reach advantage in this spot. So pick's going to be Ryan Spann, but if this fight goes into the second or third round, I know Spann fights out of Fortis, but folks do not have their typical camps going here, and there is potential for fighters to gas out. So we're going to go with Ryan Spann in that first matchup of the night. Next up, we've got Charles Rosa taking on Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell, Mr. Arkansas, is as scrappy as UFC fighters can get. 8,500 in DraftKings, minus 170 at the betting window. Taking on Charles Rosa, who has fought out of Boston but made Florida his home. 7,700 in DraftKings, plus 145 underdog. I see a lot of people out there on Charles Rosa. He has the higher belt rank as far as jiu-jitsu goes, but there have been some flaws in his game in the past. The guy does have guts, and you watch what happened in the Manny Bermudez fight. He basically got ragdolled, stuffed against the fence, and then was able to land that armbar. But he was getting ragdolled in that spot. And you go back to watch his other fights. He'd been out for almost 2 years before that with a neck injury. Prior to that, suffered some injuries, and you look at his fighting style. He's got a karate background, but he also doesn't put a lot into his punches. He dances around almost in a similar way to Elias. Something else I've noticed is he has the potential to get reversed in certain positions, and if this fight hits the ground, Bryce Mitchell, keep an eye on the stick-to-itiveness to his game. He likes to chain wrestle, will try to find the back of opponents, comes out very hard. This is Mitchell we're speaking about. Comes out very hard, has gassed in the past, did not look good on the scales yesterday, but the younger, scrappier fighter who has an uncanny ability to empty the gas tank and go for the kill and find ways to win. You look at the Moffitt fight. He had his back against the wall in that fight and was not giving up. And then you saw the intensity in the post-fight interview, and you can tell that he is a man on a mission. In this spot, I'm going to be picking Bryce Mitchell. I have a play on him as well. So pick's going to be Bryce Mitchell. DraftKings, there is potential for grappling here. And Mitchell, I don't suspect high ownership on him. I think we'll see higher ownership of Rosa when people are hunting for dogs. Next up, we head up to the welterweights. We've got Vicente Luque, who's one of my favorite fighters to watch, taking on Luque-Price, another fan favorite. 7,200 in DraftKings for Luque-Price, plus 225 at the betting window. Vicente Luque, $9,000 in DraftKings, minus 265. Both of these fighters, action fighters. Luque-Price, 14-3, showed us he was put in some rough spots against George Sullivan a few fights ago, but has turned things around. Tim Means had him on Queer Street, but this guy, Price, is not afraid to put himself in dangerous situations to accomplish goals, and he's going to need to do that against Luque. This is a rematch of a fight that took place in 2017, and basically Luque outclassed Price in that fight. And you look at the age of these fighters. Surprisingly, Luque-Price is a couple years older than Luque. Luque's starting to put a lot of miles on his odometer. I love Luque's Muay Thai game, his jiu-jitsu game, his striking. The problem is he takes a lot of damage, and Price is not someone you want to be there with in deep waters. I don't think this fight is going to go the distance. The pick's going to be Luque, but we've seen that chin cracked a few times. He hasn't been knocked out, and Price was submitted when these guys fought last time out. I don't think we're going to see a submission in this spot. I think the fight is going to end via TKO in favor of Vicente Luque, who has modeled his game after Shogun Rua. And he's got a lot of the great things about Shogun, but then he also has some of the bad things about Shogun's game. As Mike Alexander tweeted, he's willing to go out on his shield. Next up, we've got women's 115-pound division. We've got Carla Esparza taking on Michelle Waterson. Michelle Waterson coming off of a 5-round shellacking against Joanna, former champion. Michelle Waterson, 7,800 plus 124 at the betting window. We've got Carla Esparza, who is hovering around minus 144 at BetDSI, 8,400 in DraftKings. I think we're going to see a lot of people on Carla in this spot because she's notorious for committing to the wrestling and landing takedowns. Some problems I've noticed with Carla is when she's facing a striker, she does not tend to absorb punches well, but I'm talking about volume strikers. Michelle Waterson's not a volume striker. She's going to look to land 1 or 2 strikes and then back off, rinse and repeat. She knows the takedowns are coming. Waterson does. It depends what she does with them. When Esparza has her on the ground, I've noticed that Waterson doesn't accept the position on the bottom, that she tends to throw up submission attempts of her own. But in this situation, this could lead her to Esparza may take side control and just hang out there for a while. I think that would be a smart move on her part, and try to grind Waterson out. Inevitably, that's the way I see the fight playing out, but it's obvious to me that Waterson, we've seen a dramatic incline in trajectory in performance over her past few fights, and she did take Joanna's back. Wasn't able to sink the choke in and get the tap, but Waterson, I believe, did put in a great camp for this. Esparza fighting out of Team Oyama. The pick here is going to be Esparza, but I think this is going to be a closer fight than most people suggest. We head to the heavyweight division. Up next, we've got Fabricio Werdum returning from a 2-year ban, and USADA taking on Alexei Oleinik. Both of these fighters are in their early 40s. This fight should end inside the distance. Minus 285 to end inside the distance. I thought Oleinik was going to hang up his gloves after the Walt Harris fight. I don't know if you guys saw the way his knee buckled in that fight. It was gruesome. But he gets in there against Overeem. Look at the way he was getting his ass kicked against Travis Brown and came back. I have concerns about Werdum in this spot. I know that he has been a world beater in the past, has amazing jiu-jitsu, has Master Rafael Cordero in his corner, but I always am concerned about fighters in their early 40s who are returning from USADA bans. Minus 315 on Werdum to land one of his patented Ezekiel choke submissions in this spot, but I think we're going to see this fight end via strikes. The pick is going to be Werdum, but I am not touching this fight from a wagering perspective. And as far as Werdum goes, don't be surprised if you see something wild early. This is one of those fights where there's virtually no sound in the building besides the cornermen and the commentators, and you may hear the thud of someone's head hitting the canvas in this scrap. Like, give me Werdum. I will not be surprised if he gets caught, though. You're looking for live dogs, and I suspect we'll see some very high ownership of Dominic Cruz and a few other fighters, Justin Gaethje, etc. There may be some sneaky underdogs who come through here, folks who you may not expect, and if you want to take down a GPP, you almost have to compose lineups where the unthinkable happens. And that's one of the challenges in DraftKings, because if you're looking at percentages of likely outcomes, folks who are composing their rosters, they tend to look at most likely scenarios, and then you see a lot of those lineups bunched together. But if you have a bankroll that lets you afford you the opportunity to compose rosters where the unthinkable happens, then you may end up at the top of the leaderboard. Next up, we've got welterweights. We've got two fighters who I consider washed, but it depends on who's the more washed fighter. I think this fight is going to come down to quickness and also cardio. And you've got Cerrone taking on Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis, 8,200. He's the favorite in this spot. Donald Cerrone, $8,000 in DraftKings. Both of these guys coming off of significant losing streaks. You saw what Carlos Diego Ferreira did in his fight against Anthony Pettis. Basically just like a warm knife through butter. Got the submission, got out of there. Pettis didn't take much damage in that fight. You look at Cerrone, 3 stoppages, 3 stoppage losses in the row, 51st professional fight. McGregor, Gaethje, Ferguson, murderer's row. At 37 years of age, you got to wonder how much he has left in the tank. The guy's a warrior. You heard about the excuses he wasn't ready last time out, but I don't trust Anthony Pettis. I know he's the quicker fighter, more athletic fighter, but when he's out there, he will quit. We've seen it countless times. Cerrone, I think, has taken legitimate damage in his fights and has been taken out of there. The liver kick is always at play with Pettis when you have Cerrone in there. That's how this is another rematch. This fight, how it ended last time out. But in this fight, I have a hunch that Cerrone is going to weather an early storm because Pettis is going to have to come out hot in this fight. And that's not his style, but he's going to have to come out hot and take on try to take out Cerrone early, because once Cerrone gets going, I think this may be a live betting opportunity here in the second or third round where Cerrone starts to run away with it. So the pick's going to be Donald Cerrone in this spot as the underdog to get it done. Next up, we head to the heavyweights. We have a rising prospect, Greg Hardy, who is now 5-2 professionally, taking on DeGastro. DeGastro is going to be at a significant reach disadvantage in this spot. DeGastro 7,600 plus 170 underdog. He's fought as a massive underdog in the past. On the Contender Series, DeGastro was at one point plus 550 underdog against Meeks. Greg Hardy minus 200 over at BetDSI. 8,600 in DraftKings. I have a hunch we're going to see some high ownership of Hardy in this spot because people love to roster heavyweights. Problem is he hasn't been fighting like a bomber, like someone who wants to get his opponent out of there, collect his check, and go home. This fight is expected to go to end inside the distance at minus 195. Hardy coming off some great experience in Russia against Volkov. A couple of things about DeGastro. Big power. He also went into enemy territory and fought Tafa. And you talk about looking down the barrel of somebody who's got a high caliber rifle in your face, and DeGastro just took advantage and knocked Tafa's lights out. I don't think that's going to be at play here early because Hardy's not the type of fighter nowadays who's going to go chase down his opponent. He fights out of a good camp. Tafa, couple other things. He started his amateur career, he had 4 consecutive losses. And I was beginning to question what made him have the drive to continue after that. He was even finished in one of the fights. Not a very athletic fighter. Throws heavy leg kicks. Does have power in his hands. Appears to be morbidly obese. I'm wondering about his gas tank and as the fight heads deeper, how he's going to react. I think Hardy's going to have the better cardio here. If DeGastro's able to chop away at Hardy's legs, Hardy tends to lean on his front foot. That is at play here. I see a lot of people on DeGastro. I'm not. Early on in tape, I was leaning towards DeGastro, but the more I watched, and I've also seen Greg Hardy learn from his experience, even though Hardy's still raw, and believe it or not, DeGastro is the older fighter in this spot. I'm going to be picking Greg Hardy to win here, and I would not be surprised to see him win by a decision. DeGastro's a pretty tough dude. I know he's been finished before at the amateur level, and he hasn't tasted defeat as a professional. But give me Greg Hardy to win in this spot by decision. Next up, I'm a huge fan of this fight. We head to the 145-pound division. We've got Calvin Kattar, 20-4, taking on Jeremy Stephens, 28-17. Jeremy Stephens missed weight, looked horrific on the scales, missed by 4.5 pounds. Stephens, consummate professional, concerned what the reasoning was for missing weight. He was the only one to miss weight, and he typically comes in prepared, fighting out of alliance with Dom Cruz, both of those fighters coming in on the same card. 7,300 for Jeremy Stephens, plus 225 underdog. Calvin Kattar, 8,900, minus 265 at the betting window. Now, you watch this fight. We've got Calvin Kattar, who has much better boxing here. Decent footwork. Has to, in my eyes, keep this fight at range, use his length, and basically keep Jeremy Stephens at the end of his punches until he hurts Stephens. Probably see if this fight gets into the second round, I expect Stephens to be a bloody mess, and he does not give up on himself. You watch Jeremy Stephens, the way he fights and he the way he talks in literally every pre-fight interview, he sounds exactly the same. No matter how many losses he has, he still knows that he has fight-ending power in his hands, and he trusts in that ability. I remember sitting in a movie theater watching Dennis Bermudez fighting Jeremy Stephens, and Bermudez was working over a Jeremy Stephens, and this was a case where Jeremy Stephens missed weight, took Dennis Bermudez's opportunity away from him, landed that killer knee against the fence, and finished. And that was an incredible performance. This time out, though, I think age is starting to catch up. And I know this fight, I'm looking at it right now, that it's expected to go to a decision at minus 150. But I actually expect this fight to finish. And we made a small play on Calvin Kattar to win by KO, TKO at plus 255, I believe. That is the way I see this fight playing out. I think the longer this fight goes, you're going to see an accumulation of damage starting to pile up on Stephens, and he's gone to decision many times in the past, but just the way these fighters enjoy engaging in firefights, that's going to be a recipe for a brutal finish. And give me Calvin Kattar to win. One last thing before I say that, though. Jeremy Stephens, there's always potential for him to end a fight and do it in devastating fashion. He has knees, he has elbows, he has heavy hooks, and he doesn't give up on himself. So I understand why folks are staying away from the money line in this spot. the straight play. I'm going to be picking Calvin Kattar, though, to win. And he's going to be my play. Next up, we head to the heavyweights. We've got Francis Ngannou, who has been chomping at the bit, sitting on the sidelines, taking on Surinam's own Jair Rozenstruik. Jair Rozenstruik has been a money train for me over the past few events. The way he took care of Alan Crowder, the way he took care of Andrei Arlovsky, and then the way he disposed of Alistair Overeem in dramatic fashion really sent shockwaves through the heavyweight division and has propelled him to this opportunity where it's a number one contender spot. Rozenstruik, he does not have a ground game. We're aware of that. Alistair couldn't finish Rozenstruik on the ground. Francis Ngannou has a path to victory here, both on the feet and on the ground. The problem is he is going to have to put himself in harm's way to accomplish the job. And I know he's been putting in a great camp and looks phenomenal and is making improvements fight by fight. Took care of Cain Velasquez and Curtis Blades. And in this spot, it's interesting to see the way Rozenstruik tends to conserve his energy, and I think that is going to be in play. I also think that Rozenstruik can and has the ability to catch Ngannou as he's coming in, but the more active fighter, the fighter who has more path to victory, Francis Ngannou, I'm going to be picking him to win, and I have a hunch that he's going to be trying to get this fight to the ground at some point. I have a feeling this fight is going to end up on the ground, and I would not be surprised to see Francis Ngannou win this fight via submission. Francis Ngannou has 4 submission victories on his resume. You may want to look at Ngannou inside the distance. One other thing, you talk about trusting fighters. We saw the Ngannou-Lewis fight that played out. Ngannou is a bit of a head case, and I know his confidence was shattered after the Stipe fight, so that is a concern of mine. But if I have to make a pick, I'm going to pick Ngannou to win inside the distance, and take a look at that Ngannou by submission line. I believe it's anywhere between plus 600 and plus 700, depending the book that you're playing at. Next up, we've got the co-main event of the evening. We've got 2 belts on the line. We've got Henry Cejudo taking on Dom Cruz. Dom Cruz, 35 years of age, coming back after a significant layoff. I respect Team Alliance and Dom Cruz's abilities, and the guy is one of the most mentally strong people you could ever see compete. And if he is able to win this fight, I think it's going to be one of the greatest moments in mixed martial arts history. I think this fight is lined accurately right now. We have Dom Cruz, 7,400 plus 186 underdog, taking on Henry Cejudo, 8,800 in DraftKings, a minus 216 favorite. What I haven't heard many people talk about during their breakdowns, is the quickness. I think speed and quickness on behalf of Henry Cejudo, his lightning quickness. I've noticed this during the Wilson Hayes fight, even prior to that against Benavidez. his ability to get in and land power punches is going to be a problem for Dom Cruz in my eyes. You see Dom Cruz prancing around like a matador. Dom Cruz knows what he's doing. All of that foot movement is a disguise. Cody Garbrandt exposed that, and Cody Garbrandt and Henry Cejudo are very different fighters. But Cody Garbrandt did show that if you stand still, you're forcing Dom Cruz to engage with you. Or he's going to look stupid just sitting on the outside dancing around and not engaging. Another thing, Dom Cruz, when he is throwing strikes, he's landing at a 30% clip. He's not a power puncher. He's looking to win via decision. His fight against Demetrius Johnson took place 9 years ago. The landscape of the division has changed dramatically, yet here we are with Dom Cruz getting a title shot. If you could tell me that we would see the same Dominic Cruz that came out and fought TJ Dillashaw about 4 years ago, I would say this is going to be a very competitive fight. In this spot, though, it's of my belief that we are going to see Dom Cruz come out here and look, especially in the later rounds, look like the wheels are going to start to fall off. There gets to be a point, he's in his mid-30s now, 35 years old. It is very difficult to cap a fight where someone's been out of action for almost 4 full years. And Dom Cruz has done that numerous times. I know he doesn't believe in ring rust, but he's facing not only an Olympic champion wrestler, but someone who is ultra motivated. And I know we've got this cringe shtick that no one likes, and he is the much smaller fighter. His diminutive nature comes across. You look at the weigh-ins and you see, oh, he's so much smaller. How is he going to get in range to land these strikes? A lot of MMA Twitter is on Dom Cruz. I can understand where folks see value when you see Dom Cruz at plus 200, etc. But this is just one man's opinion. I have a hunch that Henry Cejudo is going to come in, be durable, be the much quicker fighter. He's going to be landing the much harder punches, and that's going to pay dividends the longer the fight goes. I don't think we're going to see Henry Cejudo gas out. Dom Cruz is typically a round winner, and he likes to mix things up, and he's looking to use his footwork to get a reaction out of you and then capitalize on it and keep you on your toes and keep you confused. But I don't think Cejudo is going to fall for that this time out. Give me Henry Cejudo to win this fight. Let's head to the main event of the evening. We've got Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. Incredible fight. 155 pounds. 25-3 for Ferguson. Gaethje 21-2. This fight plays out two ways in my eyes. Either Gaethje comes in, steps in, uses his footwork to propel himself into landing one of the bombs inside on Tony Ferguson, or Tony Ferguson stays in the pocket, does not let Justin Gaethje breathe, and basically forces Gaethje to break himself in front of Tony Ferguson. Look at the amount of strikes that Justin Gaethje eats. At first, I was looking at it and I'm like, you know what, man, this guy is a sitting duck. He is getting torched on the feet. But Gaethje is willing to sacrifice himself in the process. And this is one of the gifts of Justin Gaethje. I tweeted this out maybe about a week or so ago. There is inherent danger in facing an opponent who has complete disregard for his own safety and is willing to sacrifice himself in the process. And I truly believe that. And that's what makes Justin Gaethje so great, is that he has no regard for his existence when he's out there. And the last couple of fights, he hasn't been as aggressive and he hasn't taken that much punishment. But if Tony Ferguson is able to use his reach advantage and keep Justin Gaethje at bay at times, that is going to be an issue for Gaethje. Also, when he's going inside and he's not giving Gaethje an opportunity to breathe, the elbows are in play. And I think it was over the summer, I made a prediction that the BMF belt, the fight was going to end via cut stoppage. And if this fight ends up heading to the later rounds, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to predict that if this goes to past round 2, I think we're going to see this fight end via cut stoppage. We'll see. But I know Tony loves to slice and dice. He's going to have to get out of that first round, though. So if you're planning on making any live plays during this fight, I would hold off until the end of round 1, see how it plays out. If the fight is still happening, because there is the potential for Justin Gaethje to ice Tony Ferguson. I know he's had those the weight cut that he did a couple of weeks ago, and that was all about being mentally tough and outdoing Justin Gaethje. And that's, you look at everything that Tony Ferguson does, everything's a competition. Almost in a way like Michael Jordan. He wants to win at everything. You look at him, the way he's out there training and finishing fights. Here's one other prediction. If this fight ends up heading to a 5th round, I would not be surprised to see Tony Ferguson break the DraftKings scoring record. Couple of hot takes, but I would not be surprised if that happens. Justin Gaethje early or Tony Ferguson late. No play on this fight, but that is how I see it. I'm going to be picking Tony Ferguson to win, though. The guy finds a way. You watch the fight against RDA at Elevation. That was one time that I made the mistake of counting Tony Ferguson out. And it was incredible to watch him gas out RDA. The longer this fight goes, if Ferguson is still in this fight, Gaethje's head's going to be snapping back, and Justin Gaethje's striking defense is atrocious. His striking defense is his offense, really, when it comes down to it. So give me Tony Ferguson to win this fight late, and by cut stoppage. Have a great fight day, everybody. You can follow me at MikesMMAPicks on Twitter. You can check out my plays on betmma.tips as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. I'm in the premium section. I have a play for the UFC 250 card coming up. And I want to wish everybody a great fight day. We're back. We've been waiting for this opportunity. Go get what's yours, my friends. This is your time. Make every opportunity count. You got this.